Good evening, everybody. The April 23rd, 2024 Hibbing Public Utilities Commission meeting is called to order. All commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Babich. First item will be adds or deletes. Do we have any? Hearing none, we'll move to approval of the minutes of the February 27th and March 12th, 2024 meetings.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stokes, support by Commissioner Sandsted to approve the minutes of this February 27th and March 12th meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 4 is citizens forum. Haven't been presented with anything. We'll move on to item number 5, the consent agenda. Approve invoices greater than 1,000 and approve the bills and ACH transfers dated March 16th through April 19th, 2024. I'd like to back up for a correction of the minutes. All commissioners are present, including Commissioner Babich. Next item will be 5B, approve the payroll paid and overtime report for the March 21st and April 4th and April 18th, 2024 pay dates. Item 5C, ratify purchase of feeder cable from border states in the amount of $91,350. Item 5D, approve resolution 24-03, authorizing Hibbing Public Utilities to make application and accept funds from Local Government Energy Program, the Community Sparking Investment in Transformative Energy. Next will be item 5E, approve resolution 24-04, authorizing Hibbing Public Utilities to make application and accept funds from Source Water Protection Grant Program. Item 5F, approve request for contribution from the Hibbing Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $500. Item 5G, approve commissioners to attend the following utility events. First item will be on April 5th at 10 a.m. to visit Congressman Pete Stauber at the Hibbing Public Utilities Water Treatment Plant on Town Line Road. The other event would be April 30th at 5 p.m. for a water projects open house at the Hibbing Public Utilities Administration Building on 6th Avenue in Hibbing. Next item will be item 5H, reschedule the May 7th working session to May 22nd for a joint working session with the City Council at 5 p.m. Item 5I, acknowledge letter of support for House File 5198 and Senate File 5435 sent on April 15th, 2024. What will be the wish of the commission?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Good. Support. Motion by Commissioner Stokes, support by Commissioner Bayless to approve consent agenda items 5A through 5I. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Chair.
We'll move on to financials and risk management.
Chair?
First,
I apologize for interrupting. Could we go back to the minutes for a second? Within your packet, and the revised one, I think that got passed out this evening, makes reference to the minutes of the March 19th meeting, and you had a motion to approve the 27th and the 12th. I think if we could take up the 19th as well.
okay. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I was going off the old one. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 19th meeting? Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Sandsted, support by Commissioner Stokes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Andy.
Okay, back to financials and risk management. Item 6A, review and approve the 2024 budget. Peterson?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, welcome to tonight's meeting. We got quite a bit on the agenda, and as we do, we also have quite big things on the agenda, like approving the 2024 budget. And as we've talked about in late 2023 and also earlier this month at the working session, I'd just like to overview the highlights for the public at home. ISSU's been making big strides in our financial stability over the past couple of years, and we're happy to produce our second annual budget that shows us in the black, so on a consolidated basis. So with that, I'd like Russ Hissam to take over from here. Russ, are you still with us?
I am. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. If you would, thank you, commissioners, for having me at the meeting here. And if you would refer to the materials in your budget packet or in your packet regarding the 2024 budget, that's what we're going to cover here. I don't know if you want me to put these up on the screen or what's the preferred approach here for that.
Yeah, why don't you just, if you can share those slides, Russ, that will just kind of make it clear.
All right, thanks. Now let me click right in. All right, can you see that slide on your screen there, folks?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh,
Is that going to work, Ron? Okay. Can you try that again, Russ? Bear with us, everybody watching at home. There we go.
we good?
Yes.
All right. All right. Sorry about that. What was up here? Here we go. Okay. Well, in regards to the in regards to the budget, as General Manager Peterson said, you know, the utilities are fairly steady. Financial improvement has been noted in all years, the last several years, and the results for the utilities are fairly flat when it comes to revenues and expenses as well. And this one in here, I have a little trouble. All right. And when it comes to expenses as well, they're fairly steady. You'll see ups and downs in various parts of the utilities, but overall, the results are fairly steady. So if we look at this slide here with the 2022 actual, the combined utilities had operating expenses of roughly $31 million, which is pretty similar to what's on tap for the budget in 2024. And there were, you know, ups and downs in the utilities, depreciation expense, higher generation allocations. But I think if you look at the utilities as a group, the results are fairly steady. Okay? And then when it comes to operating income, you see the improvement each year from 2022 with a consolidated operating loss of 1.5 million. That's been $1 million of that has been shaved off over the last couple of years. And you see the various impacts in each of the utilities as well, mainly due to, you know, in the electric utility and steam, which are pretty interrelated because the steam comes from the electric utility. So you see the big swings in those utilities, higher depreciation expense, variances in higher generation allocation. The utilities engineer each year does a look at what the generation allocation should be between electric and steam. And so that can vary from year to year, which you see here. And when it comes to operating cash flows, the utilities are positive cash flows, 1.9 million in 2022, 4.1 in 2023, and a budget of 2.5 million, which means that the utilities are throwing off enough cash flow to fund operation and maintenance expenses based on the revenues as they stand now. Okay. My apologies. I did practice this before. It's sorry. So you see the variance in operating income from year to year as well. So when we look at the 2024 budget, when it comes to operating revenues. The 2023 actual was roughly 31 million, and the revenues are forecasted to be fairly flat for 2024. And when it comes to expenses, the same too. Here's the 2023 31.4 million. The 2024 is 31.3 million as well. So flat. The operating income will be flat as well, and cash flow should be fairly steady from year to year. And the other thing to touch on in the budget is what happens to the administrative costs. Well, in utilities with multiple operations like HVU with electric, steam, water, and gas, all the funds that are spent in administrative activities for management, for pensions and benefits, for things like insurance, things of that nature, meter reading, and all of that gets spread out amongst the utilities and eventually get included in the customer bills. So the electric utility bears the highest allocation of cost because it is the largest operation. There's a formula that you go through to allocate these costs, and electric gets roughly about the mid 60% of those types of costs. And then they're pretty evenly divided after that between steam, water, and gas. So, you know, when it comes to the budget for next year, report flat revenues and flat expenses, and cash flow should also be fairly steady as well. Any questions you might have on the budget, I'd be happy to discuss those as well.
Any commissioner have a question for Russ? No? Okay. Anything to add, Mr. Peterson?
No, I think Russ did a really good job, and I just wanted to relay, in the packet, we actually have the consolidated operating revenues and expenses, and then in there is the budgeted non-operating. And when I refer to being in the black, you know, we are in the black once we include non-operating income as well. You will note a slight operating loss, which is part of the next conversation we'll have about rate increase. So with that in mind, if there's any other questions, otherwise I'd recommend the commission adopt the 2024 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. What will be the wish of the commission?
I'll make the motion to adopt the budget.
And I'll support that. Motion by Commissioner Bayless, support by Chairman Hart to approve the 2024 budget as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, good. Item 6B, review and approve the 2024 rate recommendations. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Apologies, I'm a little bit jumpy today. No, as Russ had alluded to, and I mentioned earlier in my presentation, just about the transition over time for rate stability and financial stability for the utility. If you recall, members of the public at home, I think it was our January meeting when we looked at our historical losses to where we are right now and made significant inroads to stabilize the financial health of the utility. And, you know, we all understand that the commission for many years has been hesitant to raise rates, while at the same time needing to invest in core infrastructure. And the problem is that, you know, where we are today, the need to replenish our infrastructure is very large, as you can tell. And, you know, with that, you know, the needs to keep going and not lose ground to keep adding stability into our utility, which comes in the form of financial stability so we can afford the needed upgrades and the staff throughout the utility to manage and take care of what we believe is the best utility, not just in the region, in, I'd say, the state and hopefully the world at some point. But, you know, with all of that comes, you know, the need to focus and have a very high performing and high standard of service for all of our customers, and that doesn't come without cost. And just like our meeting in January when we looked at our historical losses, I put my own personal electric usage as a household of 6 people, 2 adults and 4 children up there. And of course, if you remember from that presentation, we had some Christmas lights in there, and we looked at what my monthly bill was at Minnesota Power and compared to that same electric usage at Hibbing Public Utilities, and we have the same thing too. And Russ, could you just project the other presentation here, just so we can get that slide up on the screen?
Mm-hmm. Can you see that?
Yeah, thank you. So
Sure.
this is the 11, just over 1,000 kilowatt hours. That was the Peterson family's electric consumption on the April bill, which includes half of March and part of April, I believe. And so with that, I just compared, where we are currently without any other rate increase, where we are compared to other utilities in the region. So a Hibbing Public Utilities customer would expect to pay just over $150 a month. I paid just over $160 a month for my electric usage of over 1,000 kilowatt hours. One of you, at least in this room, has a Lake Country Power bill, and I used that last bill of one of the commissioners here as an example of how much they pay for Lake Country Power service in the city limits of Hibbing. And you can see there's quite a bit of difference with HPU being the lowest cost. I know no cost is good, I have to say that's good, but, I think our ratepayers should know that we work hard to keep these rates down. And, Russ, can go into, this, we're still not at a spot where we're looking at rate making like a fully fledged utility with return on our rate base and things like that will come over time. But, the needs to increase rates is there, to plug the operating deficit, as well as to continue to build reserves because, we'll need these over time. So we don't expect costs to go down in the future. And so the more we chip away every year in a slow and steady process, we'll be making headway for the future. And so I'd just like to turn it over to Russ here to kind of talk about, where we are currently and what what the recommended rate increases mean. So, Russ.
All right, thank you. Yes, as Mr. Peterson said, and as we saw in the budget with operating cash flows, the utilities are slight cash flow losses, and that's just on operations. And what that means is that the revenues right now are just barely, or not quite barely, covering operation and maintenance expenses. Now, usually the standard in utility rate making is to set rates at a level that covers operation and maintenance expenses, depreciation, and a return on rate base. And what that does is generates cash flow for operating expenses, but then also for depreciation, which is replacement of your infrastructure. Because it wears out, it has to be replaced. And so your current ratepayers should pay for the replacement of the current plant and service that they're using right now. And then the return on rate base provides funds for debt service, and then also because depreciation is based on historical costs, the return on rate base provides additional funds to recognize that inflation has happened since you put in that historical infrastructure, and you need funds to replace a pole that you put in the early 90s that probably costs about double what it costs them to put into service. So a utility like Minnesota Power, regulated by the state, they have their rates set at a return on rate base, depreciation expense, and operation and maintenance expenses, and so would a Lake Country Power. Now, the utilities are in a pretty strong cash position right now, but you have a lot of projects going on, and over time that cash is going to go down, and you also want to keep a strong level of reserves in order to maintain your financial ratio should you have to go out for debt in the future, or just to have a level of cushion for unexpected events that may come in the future. So as Mr. Peterson said, you're a bit a ways from that yet, but in the meantime, I would recommend, or we would recommend that steps be taken to increase rates gradually at a level to get you up to that return on rate base and so on. Because one of the tenets of rate making are that rates should be fair. They should cover your operations and your depreciation and return on rate base, but then also be incremental and not take big jumps. So you want to get to that goal of return on rate basis rate making, but taking the leap all in one shot is not necessarily advised. So looking at some scenarios for 2024 rate adjustments. Right now, the current average rate per kilowatt hour is a little over 15 cents per kilowatt hour. And so if we took a look at the various rate classes, residential, large power, small power, commercial, and so on, and looked at the total kilowatt hours for all of those classes and determined that if a rate increase of 0.005 cents per kilowatt hour would be a rate increase of roughly 3.3%, or about close to $4 a month on an average bill for your average user of 776 kilowatt hours. And that would increase revenues and operating cash flows by about $500,000. And a 1 penny increase per kilowatt hour would be, well, double that. So 6.6% increase in rates, roughly $7.76 per month, and would increase revenues by $982,000. And we also looked at steam. The steam, if you recall from the previous slides, was showing quite an operating loss, negative cash flow, and so on. So comparable rate increases in steam, like in electric, would increase revenues by $80,000 or $160,000 based on 12 months revenue. Now, even though a 6.6% rate increase would increase revenues by almost $1 million, still that is a ways away from the full embedded cost rate making, or cost of service rather, that would be part of a rate study that would recover your operation and maintenance expenses, depreciation, and return on rate base. So with that, I take some questions on this slide or your thoughts on this part of the presentation.
Anybody have any questions for Russ? Okay. Anything to add, Mr. Peterson?
No, I think Russ did a really good job of describing it, and Commissioner, just for your record, we included in the email earlier this week just what that fully fledged perfect rate increase would be, and it was quite a bit higher than 3.3% that I'm recommending right now. And I think that's just something for the commissioners to know, is that as we prepare for the future, we have to be prepared to increase costs or increase rates so that we can be sustainable. And this utility has run very cash lean for a very long time, rob Peter to pay Paul, and some of that is you can only do that so long. And happy to be slowly, and to avoid, we call it rate shock, double steam rates, for instance, in 1 year. That's not tenable, and that's not, nobody here would recommend that nor support that. But what we do need to do is slowly start adding back to our rates. As some of the social media posts that have gone on, HPU has been very slow to increase rates over the last 3 years. And we are below other areas for increasing rates, which is good. That said, we've had record inflation, and our rate increase has been lower than inflation. So I guess with that in mind, my recommendation is the 3.3% increase for electric and steam rates that we discussed at the working session. And if necessary in the fall, reevaluate, but we do need to complete the rate study all as part of the requirements, PFA loan, City Council required HPU to complete a rate study. And this is not a rate study. Rate study would be more in-depth analysis like what Russ is talking about. And in there would be kind of a more staged approach. But as we kind of keep moving forward with our budget and our management of these financials, I'm very happy to recommend a 0.5 cent kilowatt hour increase. Very much a good deal for you ratepayers that are paying quite a bit less than.
So, Mr. Peterson, when you did the Lake Country Power, did you include the facilities charge on top of that in the rate?
Yes, I did. So it's for, I hope I don't bore anybody who's watching on TV, but electric special rate analyses can be really complicated just because of all the line items and things. My preference, like what presented here, is to average everything as a per kilowatt hour. So I lump in all the individual fees and surcharges and things like that. So you get to the bottom line. What is the total cost for the total energy usage? And so, for instance, that's how I determined the Lake Country Power bill. That's how I looked at my Minnesota Power bill. I think there's like 8 different lines for the electric charge on my bill at home. We just kind of average all that so we can do apples to apples comparison.
Thank you. Yeah. So are you recommending a 3.3% on electrical and steam?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if you could, I'd like to vote on those separately.
That's fine. What do you wish of the commission? Mr.
I wanted to ask a question.
Yeah.
Does this 1625 on the MP include, 'cause what was MP's increase when they went before the MPCU?
So if I recall, the last, this recent one that they filed in the fall was 10%
Okay,
approximately, and then the one previous to that was closer to 10 to 18% depending on customer class.
okay.
So, that's almost 30% total increases at the same time. We only increased ours last year a 0.5 penny kilowatt hour.
And percentage-wise, that was what?
That was, it was around 5%.
Okay. Thank you.
We need motions, I'm guessing. Well, I'll make the motion to have the rate increase on the electrical. We're going to do separate. I'll make a motion for the 3.3 on electrical.
I'll second.
Okay. Got a motion by Commissioner Bayless, support by Commissioner Stokes to raise the kilowatt hour by 3.3%. Any further discussion? I guess I got one thing to say. I mean, I appreciate looking at the rates surrounding us, but it may not be useful, but, the other municipals around us, Buell, Nashwauk, Keewatin, they're doing better than us. And I always want to be mindful that we always got to keep trying to do better also. So, but I guess that's all I really have to say. Any other discussion? Hear none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So, next item will be if we're going to raise steam rates, I'll make a motion to raise the steam rate 3.3% per unit.
I'll support that.
We have a motion by Chair Hart, support by Commissioner Bayless to raise the steam rate 3.3% per unit. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Stokes?
I'm not opposed to raising the steam rates, but I don't think that we're financially being responsible by not doing anything to alleviate the expenditures for steam. If we would work on the condensate, getting it back, I know we could get back that amount that we were talking there, and we haven't made a true honest effort to get that condensate back to alleviate the costs associated with it. Also, I have not got the plant reports for the steam usage for heating the steam from the steam well or from the water well outside the plant for use for the steam inside the plant. So I would like to see that information. I've been asking for that for quite some time now. So with that information handy, I think people might have changed their mind, knowing what we can save by getting that information to the commission. So I don't feel at this time it's fair to do that without this information. My viewpoint. Thank you.
Chair. So I would agree with Commissioner Stokes' sentiment on the projects themselves. We haven't done much to make steam more efficient on our end. But I do actually still think the increase on it is justifiable. It is at a cost. It is a losing utility right now financially. We have no choice but to try and recover some of that. So if we can do a little bit there, I'm a steam customer. My wife will probably be really upset with me about it, but I do think it's an appropriate rate increase at this time. The cost of creating steam isn't getting any cheaper either.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
3-2.
3-2, it failed. Yeah.
Motion carried.
I believe it failed.
Oh, did you vote no?
I voted yes. I
voted
believe
yes.
those, you want to roll call it, Andy, just to?
If we could, Chair Hart?
No, the motion failed then. I didn't know, I thought he voted yes.
So Commissioner Babbage voted no?
Yeah.
Okay, so it failed 2-3.
Okay.
Right. Okay, next item will be item number C, under financials and risk management.
All right, yeah, just, thank you, Chair Hart. And Commissioners, I appreciate the frank conversation. Look forward to continuing to work on those items that we talked about. And there is lots of potential, and I'm happy to turn our focus to that now. So, thank you all. And I know it's hard to raise rates, so it kind of the discipline that is difficult. So, appreciate all your support on that. So anyway, moving on to item 6C, I'm sorry, Chair.
That's okay.
Rambling. So the item for you, Commissioners, is to approve and furnish the structure for the main plant blowdown in the amount of $68,000. This is for the millwright work for this. It's $68,843 to Hekmovich. The project is included in the capital budget for 2024 that was approved in December. And we are at the final stages of engineering and look forward to approval of this so we can get this important project completed.
Make a motion to approve.
A second.
Motion, we're on 6C, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, motion by Commissioner Stokes, support by Commissioner Sandsted to approve the quote to Hekmovich Mechanical, amount of $68,843. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, 6D, approve Arkema for the removal, decommissioning, and disposal of the odorant plant equipment in the amount of $34,376.
Thank you.
Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, the odorant is the kind of the sulfur or the egg smell that you smell when you smell a gas leak. And so we put in this sulfur smelling equipment in at our regulator shacks, and this really helps the public safety. It's a requirement. And as you can see from some of the photos, the old system in there was very old and needs to be removed. Arkema is the sole source for the supplier of the odorant that we have in that facility currently. So With that, I'd recommend approving Arkema in the amount of $34,376 for disposal of the old odorant equipment.
Mr. Chairman? So, Mr. Peterson, what was that, about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we did the major plant upgrade in there? I thought this was supposed to be removed during that process. That's why we built the new buildings and shifted everything over. Did anybody look into that, or could we look into that to make sure that that's not supposed to be covered?
I'm aware of the upgrade of the Bordertown station, and I'm not aware of the removal of this pass, and that's why that's for. I can look into that, though, and bring it back to you, if you'd like.
Please, thank you. I'll make a motion for approval then.
I'll support that. We got motion by Commissioner Stokes, support by Commissioner Hart, to approve the decommissioning of the odorant plant in the amount of $34,376. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 6E, approve Heckenrich Mechanical for supplying 4 expansion joints in the amount of $61,416.68. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, this attached recommendation is for 4 expansion joints procured through Hekmovich Mechanical for the steam system. You'll note that these are 24-inch expansion joints. These are kind of on the larger end of our steam system service lines. It has a lead time of 10 weeks. So currently, our contract with Hekmovich allows Hekmovich to procure equipment for our projects, and there's a 5% markup on any equipment that we procure through Hekmovich Mechanical. And the cost of Hekmovich's wholesale versus what we would be able to buy direct from is, with the 5% markup, is still lower. We expect it's a 20 to 25% price that if we went to these wholesalers directly, what we have to pay. So with that, I recommend procuring this material, these expansion joints, through Hekmovich for the amount of $61,000, which is the lowest quote of the 2 wholesalers that were contacted through Hekmovich to provide this.
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Motion by Commissioner Sandsted, support by Commissioner Stokes to approve Heckenrich Mechanical for supplying 4 expansion joints in the amount of $61,416.68. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Peterson, do we have people within our utility system? We used to do this in the past, go out for bids on this stuff on our own, so I'm just concerned why,
We do have people that go out for bids. Usually it's the foreman or the warehouse that go out for this. Although we've done that, and depending on the supply situation with the contract we're in, it may be cheaper to procure directly through that contract with the contractor or individually. And in this case, because of the wholesale nature of it and the amount that we could be buying in the future, I think it might be good for us to explore that in the future. But for right now, buying the 4 expansion joints a year for this construction season, this was determined to be the cheapest option at this time.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next will be item 6F, accept engineering recommendations and award bids for the 2024 water main capital improvement projects. The first one will be the quote on the First Avenue and Lake Drive water main project. Mr. Peterson?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Hart. With that, if I could ask Josh Steer to approach the podium and address the commission. Bolton and Mink manage the design and the procurement of the bids for the 2024 water projects, and I'd just like to turn it over to Josh to describe the process and where we're at with the bids here.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. So we did receive bids on Kelly Lake, First Avenue, from First Street to Fifth Street on April 12th, 10 a.m. So we opened bids electronically online We received one bid from Bugalis Inc. In the amount of $2,325,091, approximately 2.37% under the engineer's estimate. A detailed abstract of that has been provided. So if you recall, on this project, we talked at a number of work sessions. So we're looking at directional drilling most of the pipeline out there, and then open cutting about 800 feet. So overall, the project is going to replace about 3,500 feet of water main, and then the services to each home as well. We do have provisions in the contract. If they have trouble directional drilling in the bedrock out there, we can switch to open cut without having to write big change orders and stuff like that. We do have provisions for lead service line replacement as well if we encounter those when replacing. So, my recommendation would be to award the contract to Bugalis. We've had good experience with them in the past. They do acceptable work. I would entertain any questions from the commission.
Thank you, Josh. Does the commission have any questions? Not? What will be the wish of the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion Commissioner Stokes, support by Commissioner Babbage to approve awarding the Kelly Lake Water Main Project to Bugalis Construction in the amount of $2,325,091. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next one will be the 12th Avenue to 19th Avenue East Water Main Project. Josh?
Yeah, thank you. So bids were opened on April 11th, electronically again. So on this project on 41st Street, if you recall, we're looking at doing some CIPP lining to limit disturbance of the pavement and surrounding area. So we're looking at replacing or rehabilitating up to 5,000 feet of pipe. So we received two bids. Bugalis Inc. was the low bidder again at $2,009,267, 6% under the engineer's estimate. Again, we reviewed all this. We feel these are good bids and would recommend awarding the contract to Bugalis if the commission sees fit.
I'll make a motion.
Support?
I'll support.
Motion by Commissioner Sandsted, support by Commissioner Bayless to approve awarding the 41st Street Water Main Project to Bugalis Construction in the amount of $2,009,267. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item will be item 6G, approve Bolton and Mank Incorporated for the 2024 Water Main Replacement Project Construction Engineering Services in an amount not to exceed $488,000. Josh?
Yeah, thank you. So this is a scope amendment for construction engineering services for the two projects that were just approved by the commission, and then we have the third project, Trunk Highway 169, water main lining from 23rd to 25th Street. So this scope of work is providing construction engineering services, which are anticipated to include project admin, construction surveying, on-site inspection, quantity tracking and pay app development, and then public engagement services, and then project closeout. So very similar to last year, we're planning to have open houses for the 41st Street and Kelly Lake project. Not for the 169 project, as there's no residents to coordinate with. We are actively coordinating with the college, though, and making sure that there's no major disruptions there. Yeah, I'd entertain any questions from the commission.
Just a quick clarification. Thank you, Chair. This one is a full new line, right? It's not just a redundant line it's a replacement line, correct? Remember how we discussed just doing a redundant line, so we had a backup at one point?
You're referring to the 169?
Yeah.
Corridor. Yeah, so this is a slip lining, so it's a new pipe
Okay.
inside the existing
Okay.
24-inch.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So we analyzed the system needs. So it's currently a 24. We're going to put a 20, or proposing to put an 18-inch inside of the 24-inch.
Okay. Do we have plans to put a redundant line in the future?
The, if I could, Chair, The redundant issue for Southview Apartments in particular was taken care of last year.
So that's all part of it, that's all done?
That's done already.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
And so that was, very, compared to last year and the way we were able to be pretty flexible working with the one contractor we had last year and the support we had with Bolton and Mink in the area. It was really easy to add that at the last minute last year. So very happy that that was done, because when we testified the Capitol and, Sierra from Southview Apartments was talking about being without water for 5 days when it was hot and having just health issues already during the time. I'm glad to say that we already completed that need. That said, that line can still break. And
Okay.
we don't want to serve off the backup. We want to serve off the main line.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? Josh, did we do a study on the size drop? Do we have enough flow to go through there to?
Correct.
Maintain.
So we have a computer model of the whole system. We looked at capacities, fire flows. Memo was provided to staff that kind of detailed the different options from replacement at the current size to what happens if we completely shut that line off. So we've looked at even the scenario, what happens when we need to shut it off to go build this. And we're comfortable we can maintain system needs during that construction phase.
For potential fire danger also?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Stokes, support by Commissioner Sanstad, to approve Bolton and Mink for engineering services an amount not to exceed $488,000. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Chair, if I could add one thing at the end.
Thanks, Josh.
We are, HPU was awarded about just under $1 million in grants from the PFA to replace lead service lines. And we're also up to be awarded a $75,000 grant for technical assistance for the lead service line inventory. And so if you recall from our working session we had with the city council, the lead is a high priority and there isn't a lot of public funds available. HPU was did right to get ahead in the queue, so we're one of the top cities in the PFA queue for lead service line replacement. We are putting together a project right now to replace lead service lines for a portion of our system yet this summer. So that'll be coming forward here too, so we can use that money that's available. We're going to be going out in a couple different tiers. The full-fledged inventory isn't due to the EPA until August 3rd. We're going to be also doing our own inventory to be able to get the funding and the project scoped and bid yet this summer. So folks at home, if you're contacted by somebody from Bolton and Mink or Hibbing Public Utilities to wanting to inspect your lead service line or your water meter in your house, please let them in because we're here to help. There's lots of public money available for you. And we're prioritizing areas with populations at risk with high concentrations of children who are most affected by lead, child care facilities, things like that. There's been some concern from some of those customers if they're found out to have a lead service line, do they have to close down or anything like that? And the answer is no. We're working through there. There's public money and there's lots of support for that. And so we want to work with you to get the lead out as soon as possible. So that will be one of the topics that's brought forward at the community open house that the commission all approved attending on April 30th, next Tuesday, to discuss the water projects for the summer. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Next item will be policy and governance. First item, 7A. Approve hiring of Samantha Adams for Assistant Utility Engineer.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, I'm pleased to provide the recommendation to hire Samantha Adams for Assistant Utility Engineer. And as mentioned at some of the working session conversations and one-on-one with you individually over the last few months, this position is meant to supervise the line crew and provide additional support to our overall electrical engineering staff. And so Sam's wealth of knowledge, both on electrical systems design and coordination and management of line work over her past 13-plus year career at other electric utilities in the area, she comes highly recommended. And I look forward to her taking over supervisory responsibility for the line crew in this new expanded role. So with that in mind, I recommend hiring Samantha Adams for the Assistant Utility Engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. What will be the wish of the commission?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Sanchez?
I've spoken with Mr. Peterson about this. I am not in favor of creating a new position at this time. I want to be very clear to everyone that this is not about people or personalities, but this is my opinion that our utility would benefit from perhaps bringing in a consultant and looking at a long-range plan. We've talked about the org chart multiple times, and I feel that the pathway that we have been taking feels a little more reactionary rather than proactive. I would like another set of eyes, kind of looking at right sizing if we need to, or finding the best structure for the needs of our utility. And not only where we are, but where I absolutely believe our utility is headed and where we can go. And I think that taking these approaches here, while they may be beneficial in the short term, aren't going to be the big step that we need to get where we want to be. And I think bringing in a consultant would be a helpful thing. I think we have the commission that is willing to move the utility forward. I just think that this is a piece that's missing, and it would be very helpful. I also want to be very clear that the message for needing more help was heard loud and clear. And in the interim, I believe that the help can be given and this position can be filled with the staff that we have through an MOU process. And I'd love to hear from Mr. Kamsala if there's an opinion on this. But an MOU can be worked out between labor and management, and all the details, if there's a willingness on both sides, I believe that can be done in the short term. So the help that is needed is also given.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Stokes?
I have a little slight concern about, I have a concern about the job crossover, and if this job, just seems like this job description that you have, Mr. Peterson, is taking the jobs away from the union. Are we going to replace another engineer in this person's place once they get to this position? So we will have another set of, or another cost for another job in that position. And so I'm worried about that, and I'm worried about the union. If Mr. Kamsel would like to speak about, if we approve something like this, is there going to be a file for a unit clarification? Because these are union jobs. I mean, the job descriptions are basically exactly alike, it seems like to me, are really, really close. So I'm concerned if the repercussions further down the line on this. That's my concern. Thank you.
So if I could, Chair, thank you, Commissioners. I do appreciate the discussion on this, and, to echo Commissioner Sansted's, feedback, there's, we need to, be eyes wide open to where we're going for the future, while we make also, moves that keep our organizational safe and supported and moving forward in the interim while we make the right things. And, I am speaking with some folks about kind of those long-term visionary goals of where we're going to be in the future. And, to a point that was asked me earlier is if not now, when, and I think when we described internally as this fall. And, with all that, I think we have a lot more talking to do with the commission about that as a whole before we take on another consulting expense. But, what we do need in the interim, and to answer Commissioner Stokes' question too about union crossover, is that, this is a fully functioning supervisory position. This is a full management position. So the design work, should not overlap with existing union work that we already have designated to union positions. So, that work needs to be very clearly delineated so we don't have any, confusion with that type of work. The added responsibility, though, and accountability for directing work within the electrical crews is very important because as we onboard new processes and new systems and also prepare for turnover, there's going to be quite a bit of change to our workflow. Today, we just had testing on, or training on our Maximal Workflow tool. The nature of the way work is managed is changing. And so, the supervisory team that needs to be, in support of that needs to also be able to kind of work within those systems and processes in addition to the supervisory role. So this is, to answer your question, Commissioner Stokes, this is a clear management position with full disciplinary authority that comes with a management position. And the supervisory role is within our engineering department. I've had a conversation just today about whether or not this position should be a standalone or if it should be in the engineering department. Those types of questions, and these are all really good questions. And if any of you have been in my office, you know that I intend this is a living, breathing structure. That there will never be a spot, and if it is, I would say it's probably can get outdated quickly where our job functions are fixed. And I also know that this is a big change from where we've been, where a lot of our work has been reactionary or very, physical in nature, and now we're moving to being more planful and strategic and growing. These things, two things combined, really, in my mind, proves the need for this position right now as a full-fledged management position. And we do need to fill this so we can keep going forward while we do the right visioning for the future organization. I believe we can do it. We're a both-and type organization. And in this regards, I don't think we have to be confined to the way things have been, and we haven't been. We've been making great strides. And that said, we are going to, and I will ask the Commission's permission to continue to be flexible and dynamic within the organization to accomplish the results that we need for the utility.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Sanchez.
To that point, Mr. Peterson, I think if the timing is something in the fall that you're looking at, that's not that far away. And putting a permanent position in place now might end up being a situation that the recommendation would be that it's undone after we get a long-term vision, something like that. And with that potential second set of eyes coming in and helping us form this, I really believe the short-term solution could be an MOU. And it could be a win-win until we have a structure that we can all agree on and not have to undo something that's in place. I'm looking for something that we can grow into appropriately. And I do feel, and this is a positive thing, I do feel our commission is changing. I feel the utility is changing. I feel that we're growing for the better and advancing. And sometimes I don't want to just necessarily confine us to baby steps. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a here and a there is kind of throwing mud at a wall, hoping it sticks for the moment. But then there'll be another action that needs to be taken in the not so distant future. And if we take our time to do this thoroughly and effectively on the front end, then we're not having to make additional changes or undo things and complicate it. I think patience in this situation is probably going to pay off for everybody. And I do hear a need, but if there isn't an option of filling it through an MOU, I'd want to know that.
Mr. Chairman, so I agree with Commissioner Sansey. An MOU kind of sounds like a pretty good idea. That's a very good thought. I appreciate that. So I just wondering if that could be worked out some way in the future.
Yeah, if I could, Commissioners, I'm not opposed to anything. And, I'd say that a lot with the spirit of all the questions that are answered, I'm still very much in agreement and support. The challenge that we have, though, with an MOU is we are looking for full-fledged management here. And that's something that, cannot be accomplished through an MOU. And so, that's where I'm going to be pretty clear in that there's going to be, this isn't just to move a union person to a non-union position at all. This has always been a management position. It should always be treated as a management position. And it is my firm recommendation that we hire this position because we will always need accountability over the line crew and directing of electrical work. And I also hear the desire, and I would also share that desire for a very kind of methodical and linear approach to the way we build the organization. And I think that's a great idea. I support that fully. I also believe that a lot of where we're going requires a couple more iterations before we have the baseline that's stable enough to keep growing effectively. And so I respect all of the decisions and opinions within the commission, and I look forward to continuing to work through these over the months and years ahead, because what we're building is no small feat. This is the organization of the future. It's going to take many, many times. We are going to, appoint people to roles until we get, the full thing. And we'll never be really at our paradise, right? We're going to always keep striving to get there. And as we go forward, I'm confident in our management team. I'm confident in the recommendations that I'm putting forward as being in the best long-term interest of the utility from my perspective, responsible for the day-to-day operations of the utility. And look forward to working with you all to continue this process through the future.
Mr. Chairman? So, Mr. Peterson, where are we sitting with professional engineering licenses within this management team for?
So currently, we have one professional engineer within the management team. And we've also relied on, depending on the projects, engineer and PEs through outside contracting.
So, Mr. Chairman, don't you think a person on a management level like that should be required to have one of these? Have a PE?
I would, based
At this
on,
level?
sure, Commissioner, if I could address Commissioner Stokes' question. Ideally, and this is going to be no offense to the engineers out there, PEs are terrible managers. And with that, all just based on experience and the way a lot of work is done, and you can see some of my team is smiling right now. There's a big difference between engineering and design, and then just workflow and directing of work in a day-to-day supervisory role. And part of this, I think, is we do need more credentialed folks on staff to be able to complete engineering and sign off on things like that. But at the same time, it's not as important as the direct day-to-day workflow management of our crews. And so, we've gone by, in the past, I think we've gone, between the time the previous director of power systems was here and then when Mr. West joined us as the utility engineer, we had almost 2 years without a PE on staff. And we can get by at the time, a lot of the day-to-day work, with solid electrical foundations that we have throughout the utility, both in management as well as in union positions throughout the utility. We've been getting by. But that's one of the things is we should have a conversation for our visioning of like how much and where at the right level is that engineering degree required. And just judging from past experience, a lot of the, at other electric utilities, sometimes they the best ones decouple the actual degrees from, and the design work from day-to-day management, at least in the field operations.
I don't know if they heard, but I asked the question if he thought of a consulting firm would streamline this process or help us out in this process.
Commissioner Stokes, thanks for the question. I believe any type of support is always welcome and supported. I also don't feel that it's necessary in the short term to identify the needs that we have. Just because, the needs that I'm prioritizing filling are more of the day-to-day closing the loop on work, prioritizing, scheduling products. We're not, that envisioning conversation will be will be helpful. I just, also, if you ask me directly, I look forward to the improving with advice we get in the future. That does not negate the needs that I see currently. If that understands it. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I believe that this needed enhancement is needed irregardless, and look forward to improving upon that once we get outside consulting, because, you know, we've had studies in the past and they haven't worked, and I think I've been hesitant to go out and do that because at some day we have to be accountable for our own decisions too. So throughout the whole strategic planning process, it's that balance of where are we calling the shots as we see them in the field during the day, and where do we go and say, where do we want to be in 20 years to be the best utility in the world? And, you know, these are all, I think they're not mutually exclusive. I think it's a both and situation. And I would prefer everything's perfect and buttoned up, but that's the world that we're living in right now. Nothing we have is exactly that. But these candidates and my recommendations, I stand by them.
Commissioner Sansett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So twice I've asked twice I've mentioned the idea of an MOU, and I even requested if there's something about that thought that isn't viable, I'd like to hear it. And I haven't heard anything in opposition to that, so I'm going to ask if it's appropriate, Mr. Kamsala, to come on up. And maybe I am not right, but I'd like to hear from you whether an MOU would be, in your opinion, an option in the short term.
Yeah, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. After looking at these two job descriptions today, engineer technician and this assistant utility engineer, there is 7 bullet points that are identical between the two jobs, which cross over on both jobs. And also, I just learned just recently, because my cover sheet didn't say nothing about the line crew, being in charge of the line crew. Now, I believe in your org chart, that is Mike West's job in the org chart, where he follows on that. So you already have that. I mean, you already have the support that you're looking for in this utility engineer position. You have it already, and you have 3 people. The jobs are identical between the 2 job descriptions. And the only, I mean, there's more qualifications for the engineer technician than this assistant utility engineer. So the letter, yeah, it would be, we could discuss it and talk about it, but she's still, in the long run, she's still gonna be a working foreman. So why would she just not stay? That's what you're looking for, as a working foreman. Should be posted, you have other people that have more seniority and probably equally qualified in the engineering department or in the utility. I mean, but it's not out of the question to have a conversation about this. So, thanks.
So,
Yep.
Chairman, Rich, you're not opposed to sit it on with the MOU?
I'm not opposed to it, no.
All right.
I mean, but, I mean, you need better than a 1.5 page job description, where the rest of our job descriptions are 2.5 and more detailed. Not just taking from one and putting it in their description.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Andy.
Well, Chair, I was just going to bring up the point, no one has taken even made a motion to even consider this yet. At this point in time, we've had about 20 minutes of discussion at this point in time, so I didn't know if any of the commissioners want to actually forward that as a motion tonight on 7A.
I'll make a motion to approve it, and I hope somebody seconds it for more discussion.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion by Chair Hart, support by Commissioner Bayless.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
can you clarify what your motion is? What is it that we're going to?
My motion is to hire Samantha Adams for Assistant Utility Engineer. So we have a motion by Chair Hart, support by Commissioner Bayless. And under further discussion, Samantha Adams, she's pretty unique employee, coming from Minnesota Power. Her experience with the utility side of things is very unique. You're not going to find too many people that understands, especially the electric side, of how operations should go, how projects move along, the steps needed to get things done. So that way, I believe she's more than qualified. Finding a professional engineer, a Minnesota licensed professional engineer for this position is going to be a big stretch. Like, I don't think anybody's going to go for that job. So, do we need a assistant engineer? Yeah, I do. I guess if Mike West decides to leave, we're with nobody in that position on the utility side of things. So, is it a bad thing to go from non-exempt to exempt? Not necessarily. It may improve her ability to get more done. So, and I hear the other commissioners' concerns, but I think this is an opportunity where, to promote this person to this position would be in the best interest of the utility. So, any other discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair? Yep. So one thing I want to be perfectly clear about, the individual here is not what I'm concerned about. I'm not doubting anything you said. I support everything you said 100%. It's the position overall within the utility and how it's going to work. That's what I'm looking at, not the person. I've got nothing against person, and I think the qualifications are there. The position and then hiring another position in the engineering department to replace this, and what's going to be replaced there is what I'm concerned about. I've made several comments and several suggestions to have somebody in engineering department from the mechanical side and from the DCS side for Delta V and things like that have not been addressed or even been talked about. So what are we going to hire for a replacement in the engineering department? Is that going to be a part of them lines or where it's going to sit? Because we seem to be putting a lot of effort into electrical and electrical distribution, which I'm not opposed to, but I'd like to see a little more diverse hiring to cover the plant. I think we're losing focus of our plant and the main part of our plant. So that's all my reasoning is there. That's all. I'm not taking anything away from Samantha Adams. So just so I'm making myself clear. So I agree with you.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Mr. Bayless?
I was going to say, thank you, Chair. I was going to say, I second the motion specifically so we can have a discussion about this. I have no issue with the individual applying for the job, and I feel like she's well qualified. I also have, and I expressed to you, Mr. Peterson, earlier today over the phone, I do have issues with the structure of this. And to me, it seems as though there could be a different avenue taken. And I don't want to get into, specific personnel issues or whatever, but if we're looking for a supervisory person to be in charge of the line crew, that's a different question than putting somebody in this role. So while I truly believe that she is very valuable to the organization, I told you earlier, I don't think the structure of this makes sense to me. It doesn't mean it doesn't make sense, it just means to me the structure of the position is a little bit unaligned. I just, we've had directors of electrical operations in the past, not assistant engineers directing line crew. So it doesn't sit well with me.
Mr. Ravitch?
Good evening. Yeah, I guess I just want to my question is, and just my concern is, when I originally that job went out, it was supposed to be an EIT, engineering training, which, engineering training is not a PE yet, right? And engineering training is someone who's working towards their PE. So that was my impression, that we're going to have an engineering training who someday hopefully is here long enough where when Mike does retire, they can step into that role. Then the role changed into this current assistant utility engineer role. And, we've talked about that before as well. And honestly, just to point out, when I came in here this evening, granted I was 5 minutes late, I had looked at this packet, and now all of a sudden, in the middle of the meeting, I look and say, oh, now this, what used to be an EIT, that's now the assistant utility engineer, now is also going to supervise the line crew. And, nowhere have that kind of threw me totally for a loop, because I thought we had already established who the supervisors were of these crews. And now all of a sudden, possibly if this would have been in here on Friday and we could have some conversations about it, that would be different. But when I come into here and all of a sudden find out, oh, we're hiring for a new supervisor today, that I didn't know needed to be hired for. It's just, I wish this didn't feel like it was being forced. I wish it felt like it was like, it could come from somewhere besides like, again, with the MOU, asking, can we do an MOU? Yet we're, pretty much, what I'm hearing is no, it needs to be done exactly how it is right now. And I just wish that it wasn't being so, it just feels like everything's being so forced right now. That's my 2 cents.
If I could, Chair Hart, ultimately, it's my job to bring recommendation, and let me just make very clear, my recommendation, hire Samantha Adams. To the point of being rushed, I know we have recalibrated a couple times, but remember, this came forward to the commission first on February 27th. That's been 2 months. I owe it to our team to make a clear yay or nay. And I apologize, I accept full responsibility for any lack of communication or lack of clarity. And I think you all know me individually. I do like to, not commit to the long-term plan because I know interim things change. And so with all that, I take full responsibility of any lack of clarity with where we are. That said, my recommendation is still my recommendation. And, the supervisory positions, I apologize, Commissioner Babich, that didn't go in the packet. It was my intent last week, and I had intended, probably not expressed vocally in a group because of our focus conversation last month, but earlier this month, that ever since the conversation in February, that was the permanent goal. And, this supervisory day-to-day director of electrical operations or not, the name of the title can change. That's where we are, my recommendation. And so, I also respect the commission's time as well. And, I want to ensure, everyone has different perspectives, and I respect the whole role of the commission in totality here. But this is needed. This is needed now. And we need, out of respect to the whole process, we will continue to improve, but this hire is my recommendation.
Just one more time. So I guess, and that's where part of this, to me, is where it starts to, I don't quite understand, because it's like, we're not hiring somebody from the outside who's not currently doing a majority of this work. This person's already in place. So again, like, why does it have to be, and again, we never spoke, and there was another commissioner there. We never, ever, in that conversation, did you, ooh, can you please scan that out? We never spoke about this being a supervisor over the line crew. Like, I never remember that being, talking about that, so.
If I could, I don't mean to interrupt Commissioner Babich, and I apologize, who I've spoken to, I wish it was a little more regular and consistent. But, that has been my intention for a very long time. And, we have massive needs, and it is within my authority to hire from within, obviously pending commission approval. And, all of these things together, point out the need to move with this. And, I apologize if there's unease or uncertainty, but that's also part of the growth that we're doing as a utility right now. And, the supervisory aspect of this is very, very critical to be able to manage the workflow.
Mr. Chairman, I got one more question for you, Mr. Peterson. Sorry. Do you feel you're going to be holding her back in this position by making her a manager?
No, not at all, quite the opposite. And I'm sorry, I should have gone through you. I think this would be unleashing the potential of this person in that role. And to Commissioner Babish's point, this work is not being done, the work will be different once she obviously goes over to management. There's a reason why there can't be overlap. And, we intend to hold to that. So, I hope I answered your question correctly, Commissioner Stokes. I believe that the reason why there was an application for this new position is the desire to keep moving forward and to achieving and advancing in a professional supervisory management profession, and building from within is great. And I expect nothing but good things for the future with this person in that role.
So then one last question, and I'll shut up. Do you expect any opposition from the union in this? If there's some job crossover and some things done by her that in the union job description currently?
That's an excellent question, Commissioner Stokes. I do believe it would be under a microscope, and because of that, we'll have to manage it very closely. But I'm prepared to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Bayless?
So I'm just curious, and I know that we're not, we haven't voted on this yet, or the motion wasn't for an MOU. That's a curious idea. I don't know how you get there, given the difference of the roles. I don't know if that works, but I think it would be worth exploring at some point, like if the motion didn't pass, I guess. I think there's a path to work through here, no matter what. I would just hate to see us, end up in a situation where we have a person who's valuable, scorned, in a position where, maybe they're disinterested. I don't know what it is, but to me, I still like the idea of having the person in the engineering department. I'm just a little skewed on the structure, and I think if an MOU would work, I'd be willing to entertain that at a later date, so.
If I could, Commissioner Bayless, the engineering technician roles keep expanding as well. And so we have two separate issues here, is like the advancement of the technical realm of our design engineering technicians is a separate issue of putting this person in a managerial role. Those are two separate issues. And along the lines of the MOU, as Commissioner Sanchez brought up, there is lots of potential for continuing to look at the capabilities of current staff and future on how we leverage the additional roles within that band and within that job description to the point of mechanical engineering. And so that will be very fun to create. But that is not what I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about today is making a recommendation for a person that's currently in a union position who has applied to a management position outside of the working hours to fulfill a needed additional support as our organization continues to expand. And because of that, I think this is, again, back to this is not an either or, this is a both and. And, if we want to take some time to look at the engineering design technician job description and the progression from regular to senior within all that, I think that's a great thing. And I really encourage us doing that because it's needed. We need it. But we also don't want to hold this individual back because they've made a clear intention to apply to a management position here. And if we confuse and conflate these issues, I'm afraid we have more issues.
One more.
Mr. Babich?
Here's the thing that I'm trying to, this is where I get, where I don't understand. And maybe I'm wrong, and, Mr. Borland can correct me, but I don't ever remember approving for this management position. I remember approving for the engineering training. So when did it become all of a sudden like, that's gone, now we're doing this? I mean, am I mistaken? Because it kind of just seemed like this kind of came to fruition one day, and then all of a sudden, we're where we've been for the last month.
Yeah. Maybe to help with verbiage, Chair, if that's okay. I think are you asking if we're voting to approve a position that we didn't approve before?
I don't remember voting on this, putting it out out on Indeed or wherever we put our job applications. I don't remember, and again, maybe I'm, memory's bad. I don't remember approving or talking about this position until all of a sudden it's like, hey, we need this position. And it just, I don't know, like I said, it's not sitting right with me.
Mr. Chair. To Commissioner Babbich's point, when we started this conversation, how many months ago, we had an org chart and a roadmap on that. The positions, the titles, what was approved, what we're now calling them. There's been so many changes. And I don't think all of them have been approved through the commission. I think some of it has been loose verbiage, and we might have an understanding of something, but it's not been squared away, which is another reason that I am feeling incredibly strong about it's time to bring in a consulting and help us map this out and label it correctly, and then we can grow into this. And it would also be an opportunity to find how to refer to the position and how best to use the talents of obviously a very gifted employee that I do believe has a place that will help all of us and benefit her talents as well. I mean, help her grow as an individual, as an employee. But I just feel like we're not the experts on that. And I don't want to pretend that we are the experts. I do believe wholeheartedly there is a solution in the short term, a viable solution that is a win-win for everybody until we get the rest of it ironed out solidly.
If I could, Chair. Mr. Peterson. You know, in Commissioner Sampson, I respect your opinions on this, highly. You know that. And, there's just problems with the MOU, because of the supervisor responsibility. There's no way we're going to get them. And yes, to Commissioner Babbich's question earlier, it was at the working session, which I think I took a grilling at, about that I specialized, or we renamed this position. We did not vote on it. We did not vote on it, but we discussed in that meeting that the title is assistant utility engineer. This org chart will continue to evolve. These positions will continue to evolve. There is not one job that is the same today as it will be in 3 years from now. Our technology is expanding. All these are important, but and I take full responsibility for the lack of smoothness of this process. Okay, so I'm fully accountable for that. I also understand the difficult situation this puts the commissioners in. So I apologize for that. I would like to move on from this conversation. And, the best way I think we can move on is by hiring Samantha Adams in this role and putting this behind us and learning and going through the process for the organizational design for the future that is so needed throughout the utility. So with that.
Let's vote it.
Vote it. Okay. We'll do a quick roll call vote here. Mr. Stokes?
Against.
Commissioner Sandsted?
No.
Chair Hart? Yes. Commissioner Babbage?
Not at this time.
No. Commissioner Bayless?
My vote would be a yes.
No. Motion failed. Next item will be approve hiring of Travis Marsh for accounting coordinator position. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, if you recall, we had this accounting coordinator position vacated recently, and we approved reposting of, or re-advertising of this, and we've interviewed two very good candidates. More had applied, but we interviewed the top two. And I'd highly recommend Travis Marsh to fulfill this role at an annual salary of $65,000.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve Travis Marsh for accounting coordinator position.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stokes, support by Commissioner Babich to approve hiring Travis Marsh for the accounting coordinator position. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, 7C, approve hiring of Ryan Horn and Cody Inthahar for open biomass technician positions. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, as you're aware, we do have two open union positions to fill. These are for the firing line, and there are two positions that I'm recommending Ryan Horn and Cody Inthahar, who came through an interviewing process, and I met them both, and provide you with my high recommendation to hire them.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. What will be the wish of the commission?
Motion to approve the hiring.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Bayless, support by Commissioner Sandsted to approve the hiring of Ryan Horn and Cody Inthahar for the biomass technician positions. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 7D, approve change to the 2024 summer student program to include apprentice lineman internship. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Commissioner Hart. As you all are aware, we have a summer student program currently in the works, and what we'd like to do is change again, back to being flexible, is we've seen a need for having apprentice linemen come in and have the program treated as part of their apprenticeship program that they have with school. And so part of that is we'd like to have part of our summer student program include a summer internship for the apprentice linemen. So it's just a slight tweak to the overall program, but I just wanted to be fully transparent with the commissioners that we would seek to have the lineman apprentice summer intern receive the same pay as a lineman apprentice, which is similar to the way other utilities do this after further evaluating.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
I'll make a motion to approve.
For support.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Stokes, support by Commissioner Babich to approve the 2024 summer student program to include an apprentice lineman internship. Any further discussion? Hear none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Peterson.
I don't know if this is proper, Commissioner Hart, but is there a way to ask the commission to reconsider item 7A?
They've already voted on it this evening, so I would
Okay.
say no, not
Okay.
this evening.
Okay.
It's been addressed and discussed, so it's been resolved, at least for this evening.
Any old or new business?
Mr. Chairman?
Stokes?
One concern about working from home, and Mr. Borland, this may be a question for you. We adopted a working at home policy during COVID, and COVID is now done, and I'm just concerned about moving forward with the working at home situation. Did the commission ever, and I know we adopted it for COVID, but I don't think it's ever moved on, and I have to ask you guys, or Mr. Borland, remember we approved working at home for COVID, but for any other permanent positions working at home, do we need adopt any type of policy or resolution to move forward with that or keep it going?
Commissioner Stokes, I agree that, the emergency for pandemic has been resolved by both the state and the federal government. I think it would probably fall back to the job descriptions of employees at this point in time, because I think those working at home situations, unless there was a new policy adopted, were basically adopted around the pandemic. So if management has discussed or directed that this particular general manager is fine with a situation like that. I think usually most of the job descriptions do provide some supervision level, whether they have to be in the office or not, but they have to be available to be supervised. So I might defer to Mr. Peterson, because I haven't studied the job descriptions to say everyone, they have to be in the office or not.
Yeah, and I'll just, I can address that, no, and we do have it within the management compensation overview, is that telecommunicating approved, and up to the supervisor's discretion, so, and that's for management personnel. And it's something that, you know, depending on the situation and the role that needs to be here, I'll take advantage of that when necessary. But, you know, we are also open, you know, when our hours of business are, and people deserve to be seen. So it's something that I'm aware of a few complaints, but I also, you know, I request that you guys direct them, just because I think that's a proper way to address any concerns that you have about people's availability or not. So I hope that answers your question, Commissioner Stokes.
Mr. Chairman? So, yeah, Mr. Peterson, up until prior to COVID, we didn't have working from home. So we adopted that policy during COVID, and I was just wondering if legally, if we have to, I understand that you like working at home and you put it in the manager's job descriptions now, but is that something that we have to carry out or make another adoption or resolution or whatever to move forward with working at home after COVID, since it's because nothing's been addressed, and now it seems, and that's the reason why it came up in this job description again, and I'm wondering, did we ever do something with this after COVID? Did the commission ever take it off the table? I don't know, I wasn't a commissioner at that time, but I'm asking now.
Well, and we haven't, but outside of the management compensation where we talk about telework, you know, it's a little outdated term, you know, but, you know, I think that's just something to be mindful of, and, you know, where we are, you know, not every role can, or every schedule on or work at home is there. The organization, the company, the country is all changing, but I'm not aware of any issues with the level of work from home issues that we have right now.
So, Commissioner Stokes, I think if it's within the management positions package to say that there's telecommunication, working from a distance, that's within the discretion then of the general manager to, is he supervising all of those managers, to kind of reel them in or not reel them in, depending on how that's going. So if that's actually within the package, then I think it's been adopted by the nature of that package.
Okay.
It's a good question. I don't think the commission ever took a action to say, we're doing away with all of our COVID rules, whether they should have or not, that's another question. I think just by the nature of practice, commission got back into a role, but if that's into the management package, then I think it's accepted. It's the general manager then needs to police, maybe is the best term for whether that's working in all roles or whether or not that has to be brought back in.
And you know, only Mr. Berlin, I'm just looking for a legal appointment.
Yeah, I don't think
I'm not.
If in fact it's in the management package, then there have been different agreements and contracts recognizing that package. So from that side, whether you intentionally, but you probably ratified that if it's within that package. I agree with you. I don't think there's ever been a motion to say, let's do away with any rules we adopted during COVID, unless it happened to be something that we were doing specifically on a particular item. But I think, frankly, I think it was you and Commissioner Bayless were in the Personnel Committee, got stuck with that job for a couple of years.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have a problem with anybody. It's not a discipline thing. I just
Right.
wanted to make sure legally we were.
You know, I could also add to that, Commissioner Stokes, we're in the process of updating all of our employee policies as well. And when we have a full draft of that, I think it would be a really good idea to getting everyone's, to see that as we're modernizing all of our employee policies that we've had since, you know, time immemorial. So with all that, I think that provides a lot of the purview. Now that we have someone focused on HR, we're able to get through those updates that, you know, have needed to. You know, I just, you know, the commission, you know, has ultimate authority with approving of these policies. And I think as part of preparing for that, I think this could tee up a nice, healthy conversation. And also, when it comes to, working with a consultant down the road, about, what do we need to retain and attract talent here to these positions, so we do have the best utility in the future. And, some of that might look different than it has in the past. And, as we do that, just needing to go forward and, do it eyes wide open, I think is a really good process, and really glad to have the team that we do in place right now so that we can continue to make advancements on these policy things that, people might complain about or talk about, or whatever, and depending on the nature of the work. Not all jobs are fit for that. And, but some jobs are. I know I can, personally, from my own experience, I can work a lot better on a packet when I'm home and I'm not interrupted. But that said, it's just what we got to do. So are there any other concerns with that we should be aware of? Okay.
No, I was just, Chairman, sorry. I was just concerned that we had made this ruling and all this stuff during COVID, and I just wondered if we had to retract or redo it or keep it or whatever, move it forward in a policy or something. I didn't know, just asking. No discipline things or anything. Something in the back of my mind I've been wanting to ask for a while.
Right.
It just happened to come on when I saw the back of the job descriptions.
Any other new or old business? If not,
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, if I could just point out just one thing, I hope you'll all be there at Commissioner Stauber's visit on Thursday. And that's at 11 o'clock, Elliot, right, or 10:30, please arrive at 10:30. Congressman Stauber should be there at 11. And then the open house next Tuesday, just another reminder of that. And then just pointing out, this is the proposed agenda for the May 22nd working session, City Council.
Second.
motion by Commissioner Stokes, support by Commissioner Bayless to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Thank you.